Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, meathead. I'm so fucking great. I am motherfucking God. I am Allah. So I was crying this morning, watching myself. God, fuck. And I replay it again. Replay it again. Replay it again. Because I love myself, and you don't love yourself. Because I shit self-esteem. Every time I take a piss, self-esteem leaves me. And that's the difference between him and you. Many of you said regrets, when we asked all those questions, and I said, and I already mentioned this several times yesterday, keeping me from doing this, me, of course, you. A couple of you didn't say that. 2 or 3 of you are really fucking delusional. It's like there's some mystic power that's got control of your life. That's how fucked up you are. And as I've said countless times, I didn't know self-esteem was a rare commodity. God knows I know it now. And now there's less self-esteem when I started 28 years ago. In fact, you can't hardly, I'll put it another way. You can't hardly find somebody that's got self-esteem now. It's hard to find somebody. And when I tell you the things that you should do, join a club you can't afford, and we'll get into that the last day. I say this tongue-in-cheek, but it's pretty true. Some of you can't afford to go to the YMCA, which I believe is free. I was reading an email from Bruce the Whipple. They're okay. Bruce, I wrote you a little email, the person you asked about, they're okay. But these guys killed them before that happened. I rearranged some slides based on where I know you are, not where I believe you are, after one day. You saw Steve last night. Comments, questions about Steve? Yes, sir.
You gotta be fucking ruthless.
Just like you guys, huh? Ooh, I'd be scared of you guys. You wouldn't have lived 15 or 16 years old where I came from. Maybe 1 or 2 of you. When I came back from the Korean War, that I wasn't in, but I was overseas with my dad part of the time, I came back speaking fluent French, and I had to relearn English, because 50 to 52, I was 5 to 7. And going back to the barrio, with a French accent, was a recipe for fights every day. Now, fortunately, I was the biggest kid in grammar school, tall. In junior high school, all the girls passed me, because then the girls got a spurt. And every single day, I was in trouble, come home all beat up. But he, and that plus my military background and my dad's background toughened me up. As Sally says, she calls me rhino skin. And when I came here in 1981, I used to say, I'm an American, you can tell me anything, but just give me the fucking money. That was an exact fucking quote to the bankers and the investment bankers and they had merchant bankers in those days. Merchant bankers put up their own money at risk. I'm an American, you can tell me anything, but give me the fucking money. A direct fucking quote. 1981. My first roll-up failed. My 13 company roll-up failed. And I had to pay the fees because the other 12 guys, this is your deal, Danny. You better belly up to the fucking bar, boy. And it took me 2.5 years to pay off the fees. And as I'm paying off the fees, he said, you should have done this on a delayed fee basis. I almost collapsed, literally. Because I didn't know delayed fee basis. I didn't know from nothing. I was just here trying to fill my pockets with many pounds, British pounds, that I could get. And so it took me to 1984 when I went public, and I paid all my fees. Because you don't stiff the city, which is the old Roman city in London, which is the financial district. Of course, the financial district was spread way beyond the square mile you don't stiff anybody and never come back. So I paid them all off. And we did it the right way, the way that I teach you. And of course, I didn't know that private equity and those guys have always had delayed fees. And one of the things when they tell you we don't do delayed fees, well, you obviously do private equity business, don't you? Yeah. No, this is what I say. You do shit up better than this. Well, then why in the fuck are you telling me you don't do delayed fees? I know KKR, Blackstone, etc. don't pay up front. In fact, those guys mean if they don't like the service they got, even if they close the deal, they might not fucking pay you. And that'll normally shut them up. What else about Steve? Yes, sir.
He cared about the perception of the products, like Macintosh, how it was presented to the audience, even though the product
didn't work.
was faulty. Yeah.
I won't say, this is a Trump exaggeration, I won't say 100% of his shit in the beginning didn't work, but more than half of his shit didn't work. And you're so, he said it in a different way, don't confuse me with the fucking facts. You know. Now, is this the movie, because there's two Jobs movies, I can't remember, is this the movie that when they were, just before they went public, he took everybody's stock back? Okay. Well, the other Jobs movie, they're sitting around, they didn't have spreadsheets in those days, whatever they did, you know, Lotus 1, 2, 3 or whatever they were doing. And he said, he stopped at a table, there were 7 guys at the table, I believe Wozniacki was one of them, and he said, what are you guys doing? And because they were going public in a few days, we're just making sure that the allocation, the cap sheet, as it's called, is correct for everybody getting stock. He looked down at him and he pulled a piece of paper, and there was 2 at the top of the list, and he went, these guys aren't getting stock. You must have misunderstood me. People had been allegedly, presumably, ostensibly joined him from the beginning. Their stock went away like that. And that's the real world. We don't see look at the movie anymore, The Founder, about the guy that, McDonald's guy, and Ray Kroc, his handshake deal with the McDonald's brothers. I'm laughing because he didn't honor it. There are no, other than Bruce and I, Whipple, have had a handshake deal because we've been in and out of business for 28 years now. Handshake. Suharto, the ruler of Indonesia, I never had a written deal. It was just handshake. And the handshake wasn't with me, it was somebody else that he honored. But most people don't honor. It's convenient to say we've got a deal then, but when it becomes inconvenient, they've got a short cash flow, month or quarter, you don't have a deal. Okay, what else about Steve? Yes, ma'am.
The sacrifice of all the relationships around him for the
Yeah. That's why I tell you, your chairman, you will live and die by him or her or it. You will live and die. And we've seen a lot of guys and gals, mostly guys, get fucked. We were at a board meeting years ago, Sally and I, and not the chairman, but the CEO put his arm around my mentee and said, you remind me of my nephew or grandson. That's death. That is death. Forget putting the touching, because I didn't like to touch before fucking Corona. I used to say, unless you're blonde with big tits and you got your legs in the air, don't touch me. I've said that 1,000,000 fucking times. So when Corona came, I said, oh, God answered my prayer. And when everybody goes, and ooh, makes my skin crawl. You didn't touch Caesar. These guys, success leaves clues. What else about Steve? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
In the beginning, I don't remember the exact quote, but he said it's about control. You need to have control. And not just of probably the product, but also your people, the board. And mostly I caught yourself.
He was a control freak on top of everything. I'm not a control freak. I delegate everything except wiping my butt. And I told you when I'm in Asia, I delegate that as well. He's an icon, right? He arguably did change the world. The fact that his shit didn't work in the beginning, but don't confuse me with the facts. And we used to have a little, not a quiz, but a drill, excuse me. Trying to pick out how many characteristics his jobs had that you have. And you guys, I don't do that anymore because you're delusional. Some of you in this room maybe have one or two of his characteristics. Let's say they had 10. Some of you, maybe 2 or 3 of you, have 1 or 2 of his characteristics. And you come back 7 out of 10. What are you smoking? If it's not addicted, give me some of that shit. I want to get high too. I have almost all. He and I are 8 out of 10. And all these guys that you're going to see the rest of the week. In fact, some of them I have all the characteristics. Some I have only 7 or 8. And they tell me I'm too soft. The big hitters, the ones that are still alive. One guy that you know his name, like the face of the dollar bill, he'd say, Dan, you would have been the first trillionaire on the planet if you had been tougher in our industry, IT. I'm not tough enough. Somebody better be tough on your board. Why do I keep saying this over and over and over? Because one, you're not going to follow the steps, and 2, you're going to get a cunt for a chairman. Your chairman should be there just for monetary reasons. Not to save the fucking planet. Not because he likes you. That's an absolute. If he likes you, he shouldn't be your chairman. We're not in here to swap bodily fluids, although I got a few guys that have women on the board that I don't ask. Because I don't ask, you don't tell, they don't tell. I can't, when I see them together, other than them holding pinky fingers, and I know there's some shit going on there. And by the way, you don't shit where you don't shit where you eat. Because some of the guys have some pretty good looking women as chairpersons, or not chair, on the board. Cutie pies, as I call them. What else about Steve? Yes, sir.
In the movie, he was obsessed with his vision, with his idea, with his goals from the beginning. The first part, before he was kicked out of Apple, he had his goal and he was pursuing it no matter what. And even with the company Next that he built, he was still pursuing the same goal he had the first time being at Apple. So this was really popping up.
I haven't been thrown out of my own company myself. I could relate to that, but I switched gears. I pivoted. And I think I told you yesterday. It sounds braggadocious, but since I did it, and I can prove it, I found it easy. Just like I'm telling you, it's easy. First time out, $800 to just about $500 million. It took me too long. And you're going to say the same thing. And I was going like fucking 900 miles an hour, but it took me too long. And now in retrospect, 2 years after I got thrown out, I knew I could do this, that, and the other thing. And, but I found it easy, and I didn't want to do that again. I want to do something else. I grew at 55 million%, which is still a record by about 40,000%. And so I picked this fucking, some of my big regrets, other than being a combat armor officer, never serving in combat, telling my mother to go fuck herself the day before she died, and not setting my goals high enough, is I'd never do this again. This is the most thankless motherfucking job. And it is a job to me. And you shouldn't do stuff that's a job. I'd never buy this estate again. $100,000 a month, if nothing goes wrong, this estate to run. If nothing goes wrong. Fuck. Sotheby's. I had to sue Sotheby's for fucking selling me this piece of shit. Anyway, what else about Steve? Yes, ma'am.
there was a tone of revenge and spitefulness.
Absolutely, they're all. Number 4 or number 6 rule of Donald Trump's 10 rules of success: get even. And number 7 is always having a prenup. And there's a few, but about half of his are mine too. But I don't believe in prenups. I don't have a prenup. And but I do sure shit believe in revenge. He has a book. And his book, it was a book, a Get Even book, or I forget the title of it, but it's something like Get Even book. And it's about that thick, and it's black, and it's small. And he had to go to, I'm told, he had to go to a bigger book when he got into Washington. So now his book's like this, like the fucking big Bible. And that's the kind of guy he is. But that's the kind of, they all are. I was going, when I put the suit on this morning, this was in it. I said, well, God put it there maybe, huh? What is it? And there's a picture of Mr. Zuckerberg. And it's an article. I can tell you it in a sentence. Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Gates think they're from another world, and we're all mongoloid idiots. 4 pages of it, but that's the essence of the article. And we also have articles, we don't pass them out anymore, about the guys that have been married to these guys. What it's like. And what's different about the marriages to these guys than to a regular stiff, And they're not psychopaths. They're kind of a cross between a sociopath and a psychopath, all of them, almost all of them. They certainly, Steve, his buddy Wozniak, who we're going to talk about in a couple of days, is the mentee of one of my mentees. And so we get all kinds of, not inside shit, but and Wozniak says Steve, or Jobs thought he was an alien from the time he was 2 or 3. And the people that adopted him, he lasted, depending on the story you want to believe, he lasted 3 days or 3 weeks in college. But he dropped out. And his real birth parents tried to reconnect with him after they found out who he was. And rightfully so, he told him to fuck off. But Steve is what empire building is all about. Don't confuse me with the facts, and you're going to be confused. 99% of the speed bumps you're going to find in the next few weeks and few months, you create in your own mind. Even when the facts tell you you're right, you're going to think you're wrong because you're losers in the financial world. You may be a great son, that means you're a loser. You may be a great husband, that means you're a loser. In the financial world, because if you're a great, either one of those, that means you're devoting time to them. And you don't have time to devote. You just don't. For 10 years, almost to the day, I ignored my God, my wife, my family, everybody. I was just focused, driven, 15, 18, 20 hours a day for 10 years straight. And to this day, most of my net worth came from those 10 years. Now, it's easy to make money. You got internet money. I had bricks and mortar money. Oil and gas isn't exactly bricks and mortar, but what else about Steve? Yes, sir.
He made these people accountable for what they did.
Everybody, all the superstars make their people accountable. I told you you're going to take, if you take, the management report that you're going to fill out, the big hitters fill it out daily. You can still be a kind of a quasi-big hitter doing it weekly. But if you give that report to your employees, I told you yesterday, half will quit within 30 days. It'll take them 30, you complain you can't fire people, that's all horseshit. But anyway, they'll quit in 30 days. In 6 months, you won't have one employee that you had before. Not one. They'll walk away from their options. They'll walk away from their stock. They'll walk away from everything. Accumulated vacation pay and all that shit, just to get away from you. And now you're slappy happy. You go to lunch with them, kiss them on the cheek and all that shit. So far, how has your program worked out, kids? It hasn't. Einstein said about 80 years ago, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is insanity. And I have a room full of you. Whipple, Whipple a few weeks ago wrote me, we're corresponding about something. And he said something to the effect, he didn't say it this way, but it's unbelievable that you've been able to do this 27 years or 28 years. Meaning, I should go down in the Guinness fucking Book of Records for all the sob stories I've heard, all the reasons why you didn't do it. Okay, enough about Steve. Success leaves clues. We got the pig fucker, we got Steve, and then we have you. Okay? And me. Forget me. I'm an anomaly. I'm like a monster alien or some shit. The backward bicycle. Had anybody ever, other than maybe on my YouTube, has anybody ever encountered the backward bicycle before? Oh, God. Okay. It's not impossible to ride, but it's very analogous to what you're doing because we're having to rewire everything. And that's why engineers and all those scientific degrees and hinder you vis-a-vis accomplishing your goals in QLA. And I told you I only seen two individuals ride it. One was 5 and one was 6 or 7. And I've tried a gazillion times. We don't have it here anymore because during the break you'd be out fucking trying to ride it, because you think you can do it. And I know it's the closest thing that I bet my life on that you can't. I wouldn't bet my life, but it's the closest thing that I can think of that I bet my life that you can never ride it right. So that's there to show you that you have to be rewired. You saw another thing on why the financial world is going to collapse. 8 or 10 minute long little video. It's not a bad analysis. It's not perfect. But nothing's perfect. It's good enough. And I could, hire some guys to do a more or less perfect analysis, but the point is the end is near. Now, whether that near is 50 years or like when an asteroid's going to hit us in 2242, it's near. In the cosmos of time, it's near. And I was reading a statement by Warren Buffett late last night, he just because he says it doesn't mean any shit, doesn't mean shit to me. But the guys that have been around a long time, and he's been around longer than I have, Warren and I only have 2 things in common. He's an introvert. That's not me. But one, he went to Dale Carnegie sales course. So did I. I went about 15, 20 years after he did. And the sales leader, as they used to be called, said that you should teach this course. You know more about it than I do. And I said, yeah, okay. But I wanted to go to it because it was, and I still can, for you that have no sales skills whatsoever, I tell you, it's still a good thing. When I went, it was $600 for 3 times a week, 2 hours a night for 4 or 5, 6 weeks. Now it's like $3,000 or $4,000 for 3 days and you go someplace. But it's still good shit. Other good sales shit is The Wolf. Belfort's got some good sales shit. And Grant has got some good sales shit. And Dan Locke has some good sales shit. None of them are perfect. The closest to my hammer close technique is Belfort's, straight line. And the other thing that Warren and I have in common is we're both graduates of the New York Institute of Finance, which that in $4 won't buy a coffee latte at, any place. And then you saw a third thing. What was the third thing? Oh, that's how my children were raised, more or less. And probably you weren't. Was anybody in this room raised like Little Trump? No, okay. We had one guy here who was the great-great-great-grandson of a pope. He was a bastard kid, bastard, and he lived in a 105-bedroom palace about 90 miles outside of Rome. He said, yeah, I was raised just like that. But he also said I had a nice wee little estate. He said, you got a nice little place here, Mr. Peña. But other than that, it's a different world. So our job was to try to de-Trump it as much as we can because, it was very similar. The best of this, the best of that, nannies, governesses, tutors, you name it. All our kids had it. Private tennis coaches that, every day, we ripped out the tennis courts, but every day, private golf coaches, private martial arts coaches, the world champion, taekwondo, everything to the ceiling. And the kids used to be embarrassed to go to school. We had the longest limo in Texas, and that's saying something. The longest limo. We had 3 electronic bars because we didn't want the guests to have to reach too far for a fucking drink. And they would be embarrassed. They'd take Jimmy, our driver, bodyguard driver, can you drop us off a few blocks away from school? He did, but then he followed them on foot because he knew I'd kill them if something happened to the kids. But they were embarrassed when they were little. Too much. And we lived in a rich area, a lot of money. But in those days, we had 3 planes. All the shit I tell you not to do, because I've done it. And it's a waste of fucking money. The guy should fuck at 30,000 feet, though. That's kind of a trip when it comes out, it leaks out and floats around and shit. That's a trip. That's worth doing once. But you can rent a plane to do that. You don't have to buy a fucking plane to do that. But that's the difference. I used to say in Texas, which wasn't quite true, we were so we had a possum for a dog. And unless you're from the South, that doesn't mean anything to you. But we were pretty fucking poor. That picture of me standing on the front porch of my house, fuck, unbelievable. You go down there now, and if you don't get shot in a drive-by, when we filmed the picture of me standing in front of my old house, there was a drive-by shooting about 2 blocks away, and the camera crew dove, tried to get under the cars and shit. But we show you that because there are people like that. But you're normally separated 2, 3, 4, 5 levels between you and that. But I want you to have the ability, I'm not saying you should do it, have the ability to raise your kids that way. See, the difference between myself and Sally and you, we have more choices than you. For some of you have infinitely more choices. For some of you just have, for a couple of you, you think you got a few bucks. We have a lot more choices. I don't ever ask what something costs. It used to be when you take a girl out for a date, the girl would say, what do you want? Because she wanted to know how much she could spend, and the way that she found that out was to see what you ordered. I don't know if they still do that, okay? Kids. Now they have Dutch, where the girl either splits the bill, what's it called, Dutch? Yeah. I never heard of that until maybe 10, 15 years ago. And in the big restaurants, the menu the woman gets doesn't have prices on it. Is that still the case? Yeah, okay. Well, if I'm taking you, young lady, whatever it costs doesn't mean anything. If I take you to a Michelin 3-star restaurant, it's because I can afford a fucking Michelin 3-star restaurant. And so, but we want you to have more choices. Online here, a couple months ago, I gave Sally $1 million for her, can't remember what, not her birthday, not our anniversary. I forget what it was. You know, when she got her Rolls convertible, I like her seeing her happy. There's certain things that make her really, really happy, and spending money's one. When she gave me the big roller for my 75th birthday that was handmade, the Bentley was handmade as well. I mean, she picked all the shit. I didn't pick anything. But I want you to have those choices. It's no accident that most of my mentees that make a bunch of money get Rolls. After they have the McLaren or all these, they get a Rolls. You know, it's they're mimicking me. But right now, most of you in this room didn't have any choices. You didn't have any choices based on grandparents, parents accomplishing nothing. Now you're going to be the first level in your family that accomplished something. So you're going to set a new standard. It'll be the new benchmark. Because kids don't do what you tell them to do, they do what they see you do. Last night, other than jobs, what did you see? That's it, okay. Any questions on the things from last night or the night before? Any comments? Okay, YouTube.